welcome to On the House, the podcast where we talk about movies, TV shows, and video games because, hey, whatever we want to talk about's on the house. Joining me once again is Dave.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm your host, Clancy. And if you tuned into our last episode, you know that we're taking another ride on the Infinity Train. So hop on and avoid weird cockroach soul-sucking bug things, because here we go. Yes, we're taking a look at Season 2. This season focuses on, well, Mir Tulip, or MT, or, well, I can't tell you her last name. That goes into spoiler territory. And a new character that we meet along the way. Dave, since you're the one who introduced me to the show, why don't you give us a little bit of backstory on this one?
Okay, well, when the Infinity Train was first expanded into a full series, like the Cartoon Network wanted 20 episodes, and since the creator didn't want to expand Tulip's story that lengthy, he opted to divide the 20 episodes into two separate seasons. So this season focuses on an episode we forgot to discuss in book one, the whole mirror world with Mirror Tulip, or MT, and the mirror cops are chasing her. This expands her story, and as she's just trying to find a way off a train, because she's a denizen, she can't get a number, and she's trying to help this new guy, a teenager named Jesse, and their superpowered deer, Alan Dracula, while constantly evading her own reflection, as that will summon the Mirror Police.
Yes, and with her number not really being able to go down, it really takes the stakes are very much different than I would say the first season was, where the first season's all about solving the mystery of the train and getting off. This one's much more of just surviving till she can find her own opportunity to escape. But escaping the train feels more like almost a background thing than it does the main drive of the story, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. The creator said that he describes season one as a mystery, while season two is more an adventure.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
But overall, Clancy, since you're the newbie to the show, what did you think of season two?
I really enjoyed season 2. Overall, I didn't think it was quite as strong as season 1. I just think season 1 had a much tighter overall story to it, but there were definitely elements of this season that I think improved upon the original. I mean, we definitely got more of an idea of not necessarily why the train works the way it does, but kind of how the train works, if that makes sense. Definitely, the more you learn about this train, the more Matrix vibes you get from it. That is for sure.
I have to say, this show probably handles its lore the best way in that it never really becomes the focus. It's always purely in the background or extra thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say you never. At this point, folks, just spoiler alert, I've watched all 4 seasons at this point. We still don't know the why this train exists, but really, that's not really what we're here for necessarily. I feel like if they were to do a 5th season, that's probably where they would eventually go with it, but for now, it's just more of the what is happening on the train than why is things happening the way they are.
And I liked how, even though the protagonist of this season is literally the mirror version of season one, MT is very much a distinct character.
Yeah, I was going to say, they definitely do not feel like the same character at all. They might share, like, maybe 1 or 2 similarities here, but, like, they do not feel like simply a clone copy of Tulip from the original series.
Heck, like in the first minute of the season, MT changes her appearance significantly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's a lot of. I know neither of us is really the authority on this, but there's a lot of metaphors that can be read into her storyline about identity and.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that you could take away from this. I don't necessarily feel qualified to say what some of them probably are, but you definitely could read into some of these more so. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's getting away from me.
Yeah, I mean we're not the experts on the subject, but I can appreciate when people do see something in this.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was going with. Thank you.
And even though he's the supporting protagonist, I really enjoyed Jesse.
I enjoyed Jesse. I feel like he didn't quite get as much development as some of the other protagonists in the series, though. I mean, you get enough from him where you don't feel like he's lacking for character, but he definitely feels like the secondary character in this show. It's definitely Tulip's show.
Well, MT's this
Well,
time around.
MT's show, sorry.
And he had a distinct problem. He's like too much of a pushover, trying a little too hard to please everybody, and just go giving into peer pressure.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely. I'll say this, probably part of the reason I didn't connect with him as much as I did with MT was you very much, once you find out what his story is, you kind of know where it's going to be going. You know, the necessary steps it takes to get there. I may not be able to predict episode to episode, but you do know what his main beats are going to be, if that makes sense.
Yep. And of course, there's the all-powerful Ellen Dracula.
Who steals the show? Let's just flat out say it.
And he doesn't even have any dialogue. He just makes that much of an impression with just his actions.
Mm-hmm. Alan Dracula might go down as one of my favorite non-speaking supporting characters. And it's not like they really give him like a personality, whereas, you know, a lot of shows they'll give humanistic characteristics to their animal characters where no, Alan Dracula feels like a deer the entire time through. It just happens to be a deer that'll shoot laser beams.
And he's probably the most powerful entity on the train, as far as we know.
That's quite possible.
So, favorite individual car from this season?
I gotta say, my favorite individual car is the one where they're in like the fairgrounds, just because I love carnival games. Like, my wife and I have this thing where if we're ever somewhere and we see skee ball, we're playing skee ball. It doesn't matter what we're doing. If you see skee ball, it's on right then and there.
And this is the car that brought back the cat this season.
Yes, who was. You don't see the main characters from season one outside of maybe brief flashbacks and a very small cameo by One, but I think after how season one ended, you kind of assumed he was going to be a reoccurring character.
And the creator has stated in interviews that for as long as the show goes on, like once the character gets off the train, their story is complete and they're not going to be brought back in the future.
Which is good, because I really don't. That is one issue I have with the season, actually, that we'll get to when we go to spoiler sections. But just with how they set up the world, I don't see how a character would get back on the train, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a quasi anthology where like each season is a distinct entity, but there are characters and some plot threads that carry over between them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And also, like, we got more active antagonists this time around.
Oh, yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about them quite a bit because we didn't really bring them up in the first episode, but like in terms of just the main villains for the episode or the series, I definitely think I would give this one the top marks of all the seasons we've had so far. Just in season one, and the villain was more so of a. It was a presence, but it was more of we're building up to a big reveal. It's not a daily threat to their main characters, and we'll talk about the villains in the other season later.
Yep.
But just in terms of the constant threat, you definitely get it from these two Mirror Police, which I just love the design of the one kind of lead character there. It's like it's so simple, but it's so good. Plus, they definitely give off like a Terminator vibe. That makes sense. Just that relentless, always pursuing force that you always have to stay on guard with.
And I like the gimmick of they could be summoned from any reflective surface, so she had to like spray paint anything that could reflect.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's one particular moment where okay, minor spoiler here, like they purposely toss a mirror onto like her backpack or something as she's getting away. So that then even though she's put like a huge amount of ground between her and them, they can just pop out right behind her. It's like just stuff like that is extremely creative, and I'm very happy with very good job on the creators on that. Like the chase sequences in this series are some of the best animation I've ever seen.
Yeah, and you got to give the writers credit for being socially conscious. I mean, this season went full fuck the police. Which I read, the one of the two, the one without the hat, Civ, he was actually voiced by Bradley Whitford.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
My individual favorite car was maybe the Toad car, just because of the absurd premise of it.
I love how there's a callback to that later in the episode too. Later in the season. That's just I was not expecting that particular gag to be coming back later.
And like individual favorite jokes that aren't really spoilery is how Jesse named every creature he came across Dracula according to like his saved picture on his phone.
Yeah, I'd say for me, some of the let's see, what was my favorite joke of this? I'd say just the initial reaction to the parasite, like him doing his little spiel, that was like a solid 2 minutes of just comedic gold right there. Was my favorite joke.
Say, did you recognize who the voice of the parasite was?
I had to look it up because it was bugging me. It was I know who this is, but why is it?
He was one of the like he wasn't one of the initial ones, but he took over later. He was one of the robot voices on MST3K.
Gotcha.
He was like the second Crow during the Sci-Fi Channel era.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Bill Corbett's his name.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall we get into spoilers?
Yes, I think we shall.
Well, continuing a thought I had with season one was how I appreciated how Amelia was not let off the hook in this one. That's the same case with the antagonists here. They get fucking killed.
Oh yeah, and one thing that I was kind of surprised by is like this is obviously aimed at a slightly older show, like a slightly older audience. Like obviously it's not an Adult Swim show, but it's not for the single-digit children either.
It's firmly PG. It's
yeah, PG, perfect way to put it. That being said, like historically speaking, there tends to be a rules against saying kill. But nope, they flat out say it in this show. I was kind of surprised by that.
And the main agent Mace, I'm surprised how he got taken out first. First by being severed in half by the wheels, and then later MT just grinds him to death in it. It's on screen and they basically have blood spatter, but because it's not human and not red, it's okay to show.
It's the typical if the blood's not red, it's not real.
Mm-hmm. Which just after the 2010s being nothing but animated shows being, oh, forgive, give people second chances. Seeing that was just so refreshing.
Yes, folks, you see Dave's a bit bloodthirsty.
Only for people who deserve it.
Yeah, fair enough. Didn't say it was unjustified bloodthirsty.
I mean, were you surprised, like, how comparatively graphic that was?
Say again, I kind of lost you there.
Like, were you surprised how, by standards, graphic that whole episode was?
I was surprised by the initial him cut in half thing, more so than the getting grind by the wheel part, just because by the time that rolled around, it was kind of the initial shock of him getting cut in half kind of told me, okay, they're willing to go there for the show. Now, like to say, it's not like it becomes an Adult Swim show, but it's definitely got your PG Disney death to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Although that will bring me to my one major issue I had with this season.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did he get back on the train?
Who?
Jesse.
Oh, well, they explained when they go over his memories, like he was having the issue this time around of wanting to get MT off, but he couldn't, and which has another neat little twist. Like Jesse, his number hits 0 at 7, and he gets through the portal, but then MT, being a denizen, can't follow.
Yeah, I just feel like they kind of didn't properly explain how he was able to get back on the train. I mean, it's a minor plot hole that doesn't ruin my enjoyment of the show. It just kind of, I was like, okay, I'll forgive it because the rest of the show is so good, you know?
And this season shows us that there's a lot more passengers on the train than just the protagonist we follow.
Oh, there are a ton of passengers on the train. It's like I was messaging you while I was watching it, and I think I sent you a message just saying, how many people are on this train?
I think the creator might have once said there's somewhere into thousands of just regular people, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, crazy. I can buy it though. I mean, it's an infinity train.
And also, like, I was fine with the way they were able to have MT finally get her number. Like, she just takes advantage of the fact she's reflective.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they solved it the only way they really could have. Because just with how they established how impossible it was for her to get a number of her own with the other stuff. Which, can I just say, that scene where you initially think she's just going to have someone else's number written on her and it just passes right through her, that is some heartbreaking stuff right there.
Especially when she starts smashing everything, and they even then don't really pay attention to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her instrumental theme that it plays throughout the season and at the end too, when she finally decides on her name of Lake.
Mm-hmm. Which, good job, Lake. I think you chose a name weirder than Tulip. But no, I thought her arc was extremely satisfying there for towards the end, and definitely the series went out on a high note, is what I would say.
Yeah,
Season.
it definitely set some stuff up that would be expanded on later seasons, and we're deliberately leaving something out for next season because that'll be where it's into focus. But
Yeah, it's like we could talk about it for this season, but it's kind of like it'll be the focus of the next episode, so it's kind of don't want to waste all our talking points on it here, you know?
yep.
But you are introduced to the main characters of season 3 during an episode of this one, once again, and they definitely have an interesting twist on how they're introduced here this time.
Yep. But to be continued on that.
Dun, dun, dun. But that being said, Dave, do you have anything else you want to say for this season?
Well, seeing this season, even though I still preferred season 1, I'm glad this existed because I liked the setting of the show. I'm happy it was being expanded upon, and it made me want more. Like, if season 1 had truly just been like a one-off, like miniseries, like I'm not sure if I would have been like craving, oh, bring us more. But now that we got it, I'm really excited where the show went and where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you there. I mean, I'm definitely glad we've gotten multiple seasons of this show. I mean, just the concept alone, I feel like you could keep making this series for quite a while and still keep it fairly fresh with the changing protagonists. I will agree that I don't think this season was quite as tight as the first one, but overall, I do think it's still a very enjoyable series, and I would say I'm excited to see where it goes next season. But I was originally going to take a break between watching this one, record this episode, and then watch the next season. But with how this one ended, I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm just watching season 3 now.
Yep, and then immediately into season 4 too.
Well, you can blame HBO Max for that, folks. They start the next episode immediately afterwards, and once that gets rolling, it was kind of like, well, I'm going to be watching all of this now.
Well, like I said, each season, when you add it all up, is just under 2 hours, so each one could be viewed like a movie.
Exactly, and plus, say I was homesick, so it was kind of perfect timing for me to binge watch the whole thing.
So we'll see you all in a few days, or even though we're going to be recording the next one like minutes after this, but
It'll be a bowl of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
though, fun fact, the creator has said that there's no time dilution. However long you're on the train is however long you're missing from the real world.
Oh man, I just feel bad for a couple of the characters then. But folks, with that being said, thank you once again for joining us. Dave, thank you for joining me for this episode.
See you real soon.
And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.